Gary Linkov, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to sit down and
Thank
have
you
a
so much.
conversation with you.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I don't remember the circumstances in which we became acquainted. It was a few years ago, and we had some conversations around social media, YouTube, and
True.
um, then I remember you reaching out after that when I decided to start shaving my head and saying like, I can help you out, man.
That's right. Yeah.
Because you do a lot of hair transplant surgery and hair
Mhm.
loss treatments in your clinic.
Yeah.
Now, for anybody that's watched your content, and we'll have links to all your socials, you don't have any hair just like me.
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
So
I'm hiding it right now at the moment, but some of the content I film is without my hat. But
yeah.
yes,
Now, I
bald.
know that anytime I talk about hair loss on my social channels, I get a lot of pushback. Why would I listen to you? You don't have any hair. You don't know what you're talking about. Do you get that kind of stuff online or through your patients in the clinic?
Yeah, yeah, all the time. I think most people, they watch our stuff for like the first time. You get the diehard viewers who are there for everything. That's awesome. But a lot of times it's like a first for them. And, it's not like in every single video I can explain my situation. So, yeah, I mean, we definitely get those comments. And, sometimes like my daughter is 6, she just turned 6. And she sees the YouTube stuff and she's like, "Oh, I wanna make YouTube videos one day," and, I tell her, like, "You have to be ready for those comments 'cause,
Yeah.
they can be pretty brutal." Uh, but, by now, I think you eventually develop a hard shell and it's all good, but still, sometimes, like, the wording of a comment can still get under my skin a little bit,
Sure.
especially when I think they start to doubt our expertise because of, an appearance.
Hmm.
Um, and for me, like, I talk about hair loss, hair restoration all the time, and you know, I think it's a good thing because it gets into like more complex conversations around like the forms of hair loss and what treatment options people have, and sometimes the option of doing nothing is like an option to really be considered.
Yeah.
There's even a guy online who just kind of has a whole channel about people shaving their heads and celebrating that.
Yeah. Is that Bald Cafe?
I believe so. Yeah,
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 I've
yeah.
actually had some conversations with him as well, and, his mission is to just give men confidence in accepting, that male pattern hair loss, and I think he's done a lot of good work, and it, should be something that people understand is an option, and ultimately, that's the option I took, and for those that don't know your content, you and I have different reasons for
Right.
not having any hair on the
Mhm.
top of my head. Mine is very much male pattern baldness. It runs
Yeah.
strong in my family, both of my grandfathers, most of my uncles, my dad, my younger
Mhm.
brother,
Yeah.
and then ultimately myself. And I've talked about my journey before, all the different things that I tried. I tried essentially everything except getting a hair transplant
Yeah.
because I realized how non-compliant I was with taking finasteride when I did it, and I didn't.
That's
I
fair.
just knew
That's fair.
I wasn't going to succeed after a hair transplant.
Yeah.
And, I even opened up, about doing a hairpiece for a little while, and
Yep.
for me, it was about confidence and, for a short time, it did give me more confidence, and then after a while, I realized, this is making me more self-conscious, and that defeats the purpose. It's not just about the way you look, it's about how you feel, and
Yeah.
your reason for hair loss is due to a condition called alopecia areata.
Yeah. That's right.
And I wondered if you might talk about that a little bit. When you first experienced that, the
Yeah.
emotional impact that may or may not have had on you, and how that helps you relate to your patients who come in for hair loss treatment.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, so, that's right. Yeah, I have this autoimmune condition, and it does not run in the family. We don't really have too many autoimmune conditions in the family, I guess, fortunately. But this is something that sort of came on during medical school. Actually, I had spots on my legs, so just random spots of areata, these circular areas of hair loss that would appear and then disappear. And then new ones would appear. And I remember going in to see a dermatologist, and they'd say, like, "Oh, you can get steroid shots," but I didn't really care enough because it was just on my legs, and it just seemed like, well, what's the point of that? I don't know. I was not self
Mhm.
conscious about that given the location. And then, like, over time, I had a few spots on the arms that would open up, and again, they would like close down, and the new ones would start up. But I never really had it on my scalp until 2018, around summer 2018. I was just finishing up fellowship, I went to a conference in Vegas. I arrived there, I'm in my room, and I'm looking in the mirror, just getting ready to like go downstairs for like the first day of lectures. And I noticed this like silver dollar area, like right here on my scalp, that's like totally bare. And I had a full head of hair at that time. And I was like, I kind of knew what it was, but it took a few seconds to realize, like, because I was like, did I comb it weird? Like, what's going on here? And then, yeah, it hit me that like, oh, now it's like traveled up to my scalp, like interesting. And that was around the time that I was getting more and more into like hair restoration. I was doing an apprenticeship essentially after my fellowship. So the guy who was training me was also doing steroid shots because this time I took the shots because I'm like, well, it's on my head. This is like a big deal. And I still had like no signs of any more standard androgenetic alopecia. So you're right in that. Like I remember seeing patients with when I was kind of first, learning the ropes, and people would often point to me in the room and be like, "I want that guy's hair. I wanna have as much hair as him." And I was always like, "Yeah, like, it's cool," you know? And I never did have, like, that much of an emotional, understanding of what my patients were going through, because like, I think until you experience it, it is hard to fully relate. I mean, I have, like, natural high levels of empathy, but, you don't really fully get it, until it kinda hits you. And then like, like a bunch of bricks that hit me in 2020, definitely something to do with COVID, like the actual, virus. This was
Mm.
pre-vaccine. Some people are like, "Oh, it's the vaccine, it's the jab." It's like this was before the vaccine was available. I had the actual virus, in like December 2019, I got sick, and
Mhm.
at that time, no one knew exactly what it was, but it was like, "Oh, some mysterious thing going around." We soon found out, but I got sick, and then as I was recovering from the virus, it was really bad, like, a week, I just couldn't get out of bed, like, it was the only time I had to cancel surgeries and all that stuff, and, yeah, it took, like, a full week to actually, recover to the point where I could, like, go outside and, like, do just basic things, so it was pretty bad, but then I developed, facial paralysis, so, like, Bell's
Oh,
palsy,
you got Bell's
on my
palsy?
right. Yeah, on my right side from that, and I kept, like, making content, so it wasn't so, like, YouTube heavy then, but, like, more, like, Instagram stuff that I would make, and I kept working through that. That was about 4 weeks, and then as that got better, then my head just like, all the hair, on my scalp and my whole body, it just started to shed, like, very rapidly, and I documented that and, tried to, kinda show people what was going on. But yeah, I mean, that time was, emotionally very tough for me because it was, like, my identity, like,
Mm,
and it
yeah.
was rapidly leaving. It wasn't there was no I mean, I don't know which one's worse sometimes. I think the slow withering away of the hair is also really tough emotionally, but for me, it was just so sudden, and I felt like no matter I tried, PRP, like all these rescue treatment attempts, and nothing was really working. So yeah, and it was like the eyebrows, everything, eyelashes. So I was having then also functional issues because something that's not spoken about enough for at least the areata condition is like the effects on your fingernails
Mm.
potentially, and skin. So, I had very brittle nails, and that was really scary because it was like it would hurt to like be on the keyboard, and it didn't really hurt to operate at that time, but I knew where it might be going. So, tried different treatments. At that time, JAK inhibitors were not approved for areata. Since then, there's like I think three drugs now, technically three different JAK inhibitors
Yeah.
approved. But that's a whole other discussion, I guess, of why I decided not to go on that. But anyway, at that time, I tried actually allergy shots. I had
Mm.
an immunologist I was working with because I knew I was allergic to a lot of like environmental things, and there was like some data to suggest that, just like with squaric acid, which is more of a topical irritant to kind of redirect the body's immune system to that, I felt like if I got on, actual immunotherapy, maybe that would be a stronger response. And I think to some degree that helped. I mean, I was on it for over a year, maybe a year and a half, but in the first 6 months, the nails got stronger. I had like some episodes where the hair slowly started to come back and then would go away again. But at least the nails, I mean, honestly, they've been strong ever since, which has been great. Um, and yeah, but the hair on the scalp never fully came back. The eyebrows would come and go. Now I have a little bit of facial hair again, which is nice. And yeah, and also the functional elements of the eyes getting very, dry, and as
Mhm.
the eyelashes would fall off, they would fall into my eyes, and
Oh,
that
yeah.
was super annoying. So, anyway, there was all that, and then, yeah, I think, coming back to your question, I think I could relate to patients maybe a little bit better, on the hair loss side, and the patients who come to me, generally these days, they know the story, they think it's quite interesting, like, what I've been through, and, yeah, and, like, emotionally, I've been able to deal with it, I think, better through the content. Like, it's kind
Mhm.
of a form of catharsis to me for me to talk about this stuff, to educate people, to kinda, like, do the actual work on a daily basis, I operate 4 days a week and, to restore people and see them, like, feel better about themselves like that. I don't know, somehow helps me too in a weird way.
Yeah, I like that. It kinda reminds me of the principle of you're taking ownership of it, or you're taking the power to you rather than allowing other people to criticize you. That's not to say that people won't criticize you through comments, but by you telling the story, you're taking that power back from other people.
Right.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that.
totally.
So, for our listeners, they probably may or may not understand that there are different types of alopecia areata. So, traditionally, alopecia areata is just those small circular patches of hair loss, and for many people, it is something that they will recover from with steroid shots, topical steroid solutions. But then there's alopecia, the ophiasis pattern, which is kind of that reverse balding where you get it mostly around the side, and that's a very difficult one to treat. Alopecia totalis is the loss of all hair over the scalp and sometimes involving the eyebrows or eyelashes. And then it sounds like, at some point you had alopecia universalis, where all hair on the body was affected, and then also the nails, which is definitely not something that is well understood or appreciated or talked about for individuals who suffer with alopecia totalis.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And now I'm like in some sort of in between state. So people are like, "Well, how come you have hair again?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, I have it in some areas, I don't in other areas." So yeah, it's like there's a lot of gray zone, and I think it's like that in well in all of life, including medicine and the conditions that we see. There's like definitely some extremes of a condition, and then there's like all that in between stuff.
Yeah, we see patients with eczema or psoriasis, sometimes affecting small areas of the body, and sometimes they get erythrodermic. Their whole body is affected, and that can actually be a medical emergency. So there's a wide range of presentation when it comes to nearly anything that we deal with in medicine, from
Yeah.
cancer to hair loss to rashes to hearing loss. All these things occur on a spectrum.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well said.
Now, you have been well active on social media. You said you were documenting your journey about the hair loss. When did you start on social media, and why did you feel that that was important to be on social media?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think in residency, I don't think I did any social media. That was up to 2017. Um, in 2018, in fellowship, my facial plastics and reconstructive surgery fellowship, I started slowly on mainly Instagram.
Hmm.
And and at that time, I actually had a YouTube channel, but it was just to, like, record some short clips, and we were trying to, like, create, like, my website for the practice that I was gonna be starting, and that was just a place to kinda house the clips, it was never meant to, like, try to grow on YouTube. I never watched YouTube. It wasn't, like, something, in training that we ever did. I mean, there were a couple of these random medical videos, at the time of my training, but never like a useful resource for anything really. And I never like watched it for entertainment, so I knew very little about how YouTube. I knew it existed, of course. I knew people put videos out there, but yeah, and then like the website guy was like, "Oh, make some clips and we can store it there and just link it." So that's the only reason why I had a YouTube account in 2018. And then Instagram was just like still the early days for like medical. I remember there was like a small community of doctors who were like starting to do things at that time. I know it's crazy because I mean, 7 years ago, but time, a lot of things have happened since
Yeah, it
then.
evolves quick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially, I think COVID kind of supercharged it because people were just like sitting at home and needed something to do, and this was a great thing for for people to do. But yeah, so Instagram and just to kind of like, I mean, I knew I needed to do some form of marketing. It just felt like it'd be good to get some material out there. I had no I knew nothing about actual marketing for a surgical practice. At that time, I didn't read books on it. I didn't watch podcasts. It was just like I just felt like I should probably have a presence online. And that's why I was like making these little clips, a lot of like personal stuff, like just me in the gym or something.
Mhm.
At that time, I still went to the gym, so that was 2018, and then 2020 was really because COVID and inactivity in the practice because we couldn't even do elective surgery for 3 months, and my, uh, editor I had, like, a part-time, remote editor, for those short clips for the website, and it was he who suggested, like, "Oh, maybe you should start making YouTube videos," and I didn't even know what he meant by that, so he gave me some references, some other doctors who were in other disciplines who were making videos, and, I was like, "Okay, this is interesting. I don't know if this will work. I don't know if I'll enjoy it, but let me try." So, yeah, I just filmed different types of videos, and we started to see that, oh, something was eventually working, not the
Mhm.
first couple, but
Right.
after a while, something started to work and just kept doubling down, and then, yeah, it just felt like more and more people were watching around that time, again, being at home, and also, like, the whole aesthetic, market seemed to really skyrocket, during those years of, like, 2020, 2021, like the whole Zoom boom, and
Mhm.
there's just certain industries just were benefiting from that time. And also financially, the interest rates were lower. People could, felt like they could afford, maybe some elective procedures. They could recover more like at home remotely because they didn't have to go in as much. Like there was like lots of reasons for aesthetics gaining more traction, both invasive and non-invasive, and social media was booming, and there wasn't as much content as there is now. Because I think what happened was like from 2020 to 2022, maybe 2023, there were like some creators who we had like a chance to to get ahead of the pack, and then the people who came before us were able to get even more ahead.
Yeah.
And then over the past 3 years, it's just been insane. Like just everyone creating content essentially and seeing it as a path forward for their personal brand, for their businesses, whatever it is. And it's just like a huge saturation of content, and it's in some ways harder than it was to maybe stand out as a content creator or as a doctor online. But at that time, it was a little bit easier because there were like
Mhm.
fewer people doing this stuff.
And it's been a great tool for marketing of your practice and also just educating the population. And you're in a field where you do a lot of the hair transplant surgery and hair restoration treatment. And we've talked about this on my channels and my podcast before, but I want to get a sense for your training in hair transplant surgery, where that comes in for people that get into that, because there's no specific residency for hair transplant surgery. We get a little exposure in dermatology. You probably got some exposure in your plastics residency, but it sounds like that wasn't quite enough. So
Yeah.
what does that look like so that consumers understand when they're seeking out that kind of treatment? What does the training look like, and how can they find people like you?
Yeah, it's all over the place. It's not structured, like you said, Dustin, and the truth is, it's kind of a problem in that a lot of people offer these services. A lot of people have like traveling teams, or they do just kind of do a little hair restoration on the side. And in many ways, that's the reason why places like Turkey have become really popular for hair restoration because, you know, part of it's price, the price
Mhm.
point. But part of it is like if people see that, oh, these guys are doing this stuff all the time, so they must know what they're doing. There's maybe, I mean, some grain of truth to that. So I understand why I'm not in the camp of like bashing Turkey or some other country just because they're doing a lot of something. I mean, there are certain problems, certain black market practices that are problematic, but in my opinion, they exist in the US and I mean, all over the place as well. And a lot of the what we call black market stems from surgeons not really being primarily responsible for the care of the patient during the surgery,
Mhm.
and that occurs everywhere. That's not just a Turkey thing. Uh, It's the truth. I mean, I don't know, because some
Yeah.
people in my industry don't wanna say that, but that is just the truth. And also it doesn't mean that doing a lot of something, like, all the time just because you're doing it, I think some you have to do, like it's just like you need the right dose of it. If you're doing too little of it, like, if you're doing a case every month, that's not enough.
Right.
If you're doing 5 cases a day, that's too much. Like,
Mhm.
there is a point where one doctor with even like a huge team cannot properly service, so many people. And then you get into like less doctor involvement and more just like random technicians
The
who are
technicians, yeah.
responsible for you. And so, but again, that's not to say that technicians are not important. They're critically important to hair restoration. So there's all this kind of like nuance that I think is kind of lost on people, and people don't know like what they should be looking for, and then they get confused. Like maybe they should go to Turkey and spend less, and maybe they'll get better care than going to their local place in the States. Like that is a possibility. But then again, if you're truly looking for high level care, you don't have to just stay in the US for that, but you need to be looking for a specific doctor and like, making sure their work resonates with you, that they're, the leading the team for every surgery. And that there's centers of excellence. There are not a ton of them, but there are centers of excellence throughout the whole world. And some of those are in the US and some of those are, in a lot of other places. Like some of my closest colleagues these days through these hair conferences that are by nature very international because there aren't that many people in each country who actually care about the field and are trying to
Yeah.
push it forward and do good work. So my closest friends are like in other places, Portugal, Bulgaria, Brazil, it's like all over the place, lots of places, other places in Europe where, they're doing great work. And so, yeah, so I think, like, on an international level, like, you have to kind of be looking for a specific doctor, not like a clinic or not just like some random thing you saw on Instagram. As far as training goes, I think to do this stuff well, like with anything, you need kind of formal training. Unfortunately, at least I think all around the world, there's no great track to kind of getting to that in hair restoration surgery. So you sort of have to seek it out on your own or kind of fall into some more formal training with a specific doctor who's already doing it at a high level. And then either you work under them or like for a number of years, or you have like some sort of training program that you do with them and then go off on your own. So I think like understanding someone's pedigree in this from a patient's perspective is really important. So like in my residency, all I did was like read a textbook chapter on hair restoration. I had 0 exposure to the actual, like, clinical side of it, and we got tested on it. It was on our boards, and I
Mhm.
think I got, like, a bunch of those questions wrong, on most of our practice, exams each year, uh, and I actually gave a talk about it in my, chief year just because I was trying to, like, understand more about hair restoration, and the funny thing is uh one of the slides was about like some new study with fat stem cells used for like hair restoration, and study was being done by this guy named Jeff Epstein, who is not the one that most people
Not
are
the one
familiar
that
with.
is in the news right now.
Yeah, not the one who's dead, but the one who's very much alive and doing great, and he's out in, Miami area, and so he, did this study, and he was a very active, is a very active hair restoration surgeon, and so it was during fellowship then also during fellowship, I mean, I was doing facial plastics, facial trauma, like all this stuff, cancer reconstruction. Like it wasn't a hair focused fellowship. And during that year, they were like, okay, you have time for like 2 conferences, and that's it. Everything we have you for the rest of the year. So one of them was going to be like the main, kind of facial plastics association, organization conference. And they're like, this the other one you can pick and choose. But in the past, some of our fellows have done this like hair course in Miami with this guy Epstein, and they really enjoyed it. None of them went on, by the way, to do hair as like their primary focus, but
Yeah.
at that time I just heard, oh, there's this cool course in Miami. Like, how bad will it be? I'll go to Miami for a long weekend and learn something new.
Yeah.
So that was really the start of it. So I just did this like 4-day course with Epstein and his team, and I was like super impressed because his background is facial plastics. So he was kind of at that time incorporating a lot of facial plastics work in with hair, and I thought it was like really cool. And I still at that time wasn't like convinced that, "Oh, I'm gonna just do this or
Mhm.
focus on this." And it was he and his team who suggested, they're like, "Oh, do you wanna work with us, like, part-time?" Like, because they knew I was starting my own practice after fellowship in New York City. They're like, "Oh, we're already in New York every month. We come for a few days, we do cases there," because his home base was Miami. So I took that on. I spent weeks with him, like living out of his guest house with his family, and going to clinic with him. And when he'd come to New York, I would just drop everything I was doing, just work with him, and they would send me patients that were like kind of overseen by the Miami practice. So I became like his New York City arm essentially
Okay.
for hair restoration, and that went on for almost 2 years. And it was during COVID that we kind of went our separate ways, and so right out of COVID, like, I was already on my own and trying to find my own team members and my own equipment and, trying to do my own marketing essentially. But I had 2 years, like, of, essentially an apprenticeship of sorts to learn this stuff properly. You cannot just take a course and do high-level care in this industry, in any industry. But there is no formal path, and since then, he has one, like, junior partner in his practice for many years, but he has never really, other than the course, kind of done anything like he did with me. It worked for both of us for the time that we were together. But yeah, they're hard to come by, and it's also like a commitment because, like, I didn't have to do that, like,
Right.
uh, I had a
Yeah, you
lot
could
of
have been on
training.
your own already doing facial plastics and probably doing great.
Yeah, so, like, at one time, I had a part-time VA job that paid the bills, you know? I had, a part-time remote ENT job for a prison in Westchester, which was a very interesting experience.
Yeah.
Like, the I never actually stepped foot in the prison, and half the time, they had to cancel the sessions because there was, like, a fight that broke out in the prison. But, like, I lived through that, that was cool, and then I had, like, my facial plastics practice that I had launched, and that was, in the early years, just, like, injectables and just an occasional facelift or occasional rhinoplasty, and then eventually became a little bit more regular, and then I had all the hair activity that was under this other person's practice. So, I had all those kinda different hats that I was juggling in the first, few years. And then after about 3, 4 years, of all of that, I slowly started to kind of wean down on all those other things and then just focused on my own practice. So for the past, 3 years now, it's just been my private practice. And then over the past, 2.5, almost 3 years, I decided to really limit the offerings. So I
Mhm.
was like, well, I can't be the guy for all these things. Like, I was getting nice results for like my VA job. I did like really complex revision rhinoplasty. And so in my practice, I did a combo of functional and cosmetic, and like overall great results. People were happy, but I'm like, I cannot do, like, there was a time when I was doing 2 weeks of hair restoration, 2 weeks everything else, and then like it was just wasn't sustainable. It wasn't
Right.
the way to, like, I think, really make a name for myself. So now for years now, we've been doing just hair restoration, and then the lip stuff I kept because it was still a way to kinda honor my background of facial plastics. I started off, in Manhattan as, like, the lip guy. That was
Mhm.
sort of, by design to have, like, a niche, to have something that was a little different than the rest, and then from that, I got a lot of other, like, rhino work and facelift work 'cause, kinda goes hand in hand, and so when I decided, like, I'm really gonna go in to mainly just hair, I kept the lip work because it was already niche. We
Mhm.
had people traveling from all over for these kind of delicate procedures in the middle of the face, and it was a way to kind of keep my open surgery skills going because we don't do that much strip surgery anymore
Yeah.
for hair. So, it's good to keep my hands active, and I really enjoy, that procedure, and, very high satisfaction rates, and it's also mostly, like, female patients, and my hair work is mostly male patients, so it's kind of a nice blend.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, so that's kind of why it is what it is today, even though it's a kind of an unusual, blend, but it works for me, and plus, like, I can juggle those 2 quite well because hair surgery takes all day, lip
Yeah.
surgery will take, like, an hour,
Mhm.
so I can find ways of fitting that in and still provide, high level individualized care for my hair patients.
Yeah. I like the approach that you've talked about, and I think we've covered a lot of good information for consumers to understand that pathway to training, very similar to what we've heard from other hair transplant surgeons that we've talked to. And when somebody is looking for a hair transplant surgeon, there is, even though no formal training pathway, there is a certifying body, so to speak. It's the International Society for Hair Restoration Surgery.
Yeah, the ISHRS is what is our, like, largest, organization, exactly, and actually they, picked me just, I think it was like 6 months ago to be on their, like, education committee,
Mm.
which was cool, because I think of all the stuff we put out online, we do I would argue probably more education on this topic than maybe anyone out there, so, it was nice to, I guess, have that recognition and hopefully help out, with the organization more. But yeah, that's the biggest one. There are, like, some others that are more international in other parts, of the world, but this one probably does the best job of bringing sort of everyone together, and yeah.
So if somebody in the United States is looking for a doctor for hair transplant, would you say it's essential that they find somebody that is certified under that body?
I think being a member of it is probably an important, component. I hesitate to say that like, you have to be with them. I'm one who likes to kind of do my own thing to a degree, and I don't think anyone should feel like they have to, do anything. I think being board certified, first of all, is really important. I mean, to kind of like to make sure that your doctor is board certified in something related to what they're doing. I think
Mhm.
that's probably the more critical thing. Just because there is like a certain level of like certain standard that you have to not just meet initially, but like to continue, right? We do the CME stuff that we do to maintain our certification. And I think that, in my opinion, is more critical than an ISHRS membership. But I do think that, that is one factor for people to look at. But I hesitate to say that like you have to be in it.
That it's a
I have some,
must.
yeah, I have some colleagues, at least internationally, who are not, and they do amazing work. So I think the key thing is that your doctor is primarily responsible for your actual surgery. I think that I don't know why, but, like, that bar is set very low, in hair surgery, and so we need to raise that up. So that is really because I mean, let's just say it in a different way. There are ICHRS members who, delegate, maybe too much
Mhm.
to technicians as well. So there is that side of it. So it just because someone is part of the ICHRS does not mean that they do very high level ethical care for every single case all the time. So
Yeah, that's
I
well
think
said.
I think that I think that's really the critical thing. But it's hard from a patient's perspective. It's hard like if I'm looking for a doctor for myself or for a family member for something else, like it's really hard to find the right person and to trust that they have your best intentions in mind, that they're actually like good at what they do, especially if it's a very kind of technical thing. Very, very difficult. How do you know someone's complication rates? Like patients ask me, what's the worst you've seen? But I'm very honest with them. But how do they know I'm telling the truth?
Right.
How do they really know? How do we ever know? Especially in this world, because historically, I would say, like, trust the gallery, like, go to someone's gallery, you know? Now with this AI stuff, how do you even trust someone's I don't
Mhm.
it's just the world's getting a little bit more wild with the AI and
Yeah.
Photoshop and people stealing other people's images and saying, like, "Oh, this is my work." So from a patient's perspective, I mean, how do you know? Like, very
Yeah.
hard. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's a difficult landscape for some consumers to be able to navigate. I've had a number of
Yeah.
patients here in my area that are interested in hair transplant surgery, and I tell them honestly that there's nobody in my town of Boise, Idaho, that I recommend for hair transplant surgery. There is somebody here that performs it, but they're actually not even a physician. And that just, worries me to no end. And they'll say, "Well, I've already paid a deposit there." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Yeah, yeah.
And, but I tell them like it's a procedure worth traveling for, to
Yeah,
do your research. And then imagine they've done their research, they think they're ready to move forward, they're in that consultation chair. What are
yeah.
the most important questions that a potential patient should be asking the doctor when they're sitting there in that consultation?
Yeah, I think, it comes down like, once you feel like you're at least talking to the right person from the standpoint of, like, they know what they're doing, they would do high quality work for you, I think the next step, like, once you're in the consultation, like, sometimes I still get grilled, by patients about, like, my background and my training and how many of these do you do a day? Like, in my opinion, if you haven't done like, you should do that legwork in advance and not just grill the doctor, like, you shouldn't if you haven't figured out the answers to that kinda stuff,
Mhm.
you probably shouldn't even do the consultation with them, especially if you're paying for it.
Yeah.
Most, like, high quality surgeons, like, you kinda have to pay for their consultation, their time, so, like, take the time to do the research so when you're talking to them, don't spend 30 minutes, like, grilling me about, how many of these you do a week, and I don't think that's the best use of the time, to be honest. I think the time should be spent on understanding what is their plan for you. Every case is different. Understand like I have to spend time understanding the person's goals and like what they're envisioning for what they really want in addition to like, how stable it is their hair and like, what are their other medical conditions possibly and are they on medical therapy and what do they want to get out of this? Like some patients like they'll have a big open crown, but all they care about is making sure the hairline looks as good as it can look and they couldn't care less about the crown.
Mhm.
Other patients, very different concerns. So I need to spend some time understanding what are their main concerns. So I think the more people can again do some legwork in advance of the call, to truly understand like what's bothering them, what are they hoping to get out of this, it just makes the conversation more fruitful. And then like my job is to come up with essentially a treatment plan for the patient. And sometimes that includes medical therapy. Sometimes it just, is like, well, maybe surgery is not the right answer right now. Let's investigate some other things or let's give it time. Let's see you in the office. Let's double check. And other times it's like pretty straightforward. Like, this is what I can offer you. This is the design of the hairline that I would do for you. This is a patient, in my gallery that you kind of remind me of. Let's take a look. Let's see if something like this is something you might be happy with. Like that is a good use of the time.
Mhm.
When I have to spend 30 minutes, let's say they're not grilling me on why they should choose me, but let's say they've never heard of medical therapy and they're actively losing their hair. And I have to spend 30 minutes talking to them about the importance of finasteride or stabilizing their hair with something before we proceed to surgery. And that surgery shouldn't be seen as some emergency thing to save your hair. If they haven't understood sort of the basics through either my videos or other readings or viewing things online, not a great use of the time, I think. So I think most of the important information is out there, and I think if people are strongly considering surgery, they should do this legwork in advance, so that the time spent together is really on coming up with like a good surgical plan or medical plan for them. Uh, and yeah, and that's what I think the consultation should focus on.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. You can really probably try to understand a lot of that before you're ever sitting in that chair or if you're doing a Zoom consult and really understanding what the plan is for you. I like that advice. So, you've also developed a line of products now. This is launched, in the last couple of years. It's a line called Feel Confident that includes skincare and hair care products. And I wanted to understand what inspired you to develop this line I'm less familiar with the hair care market than I am with the skincare market, and there's a lot of skincare products and brands out there. So what was the genesis of this, and what role do you feel that it provides, to your patients and to consumers?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll just be totally straightforward. It's the best way I know how to be, because
Mhm.
I think like I listen to a lot of podcasts and especially with like businessy, like, kind of stuff and um, brand building and all this stuff. And I just feel like the founders usually have a very sculpted story that I don't feel like is always that genuine. And
Yeah.
that's just kind of like the sense that I get because I can tell you like how it actually came to be. And, and it evolves, and it evolves. And a lot of it is financial, and I think we, like, need to accept that and just like you have your practice, I have my practice, like, there are real financial elements that there's, like, the whole medical side, there's taking good care of patients, and there's, like, business,
Mhm.
and I don't know why people sometimes have a hard time like when it comes to doctors making money. Like,
Mhm.
somehow, they'll root for the guy with the, Bugatti who's doing all these videos on TikTok, who
Right.
made his money, God knows how, through some, businessy things.
Right.
But if it's a doctor, somehow they're not allowed to make money, is sort of sometimes the sense that I get. But, that aside, the channel, the YouTube channel was accelerating, and we felt like all these people were coming to us for advice, general, advice for who do I go to for this type of procedure, or where do I get my finasteride, or all these things. And we knew there were other companies that were had like a direct to consumer approach, like online, even for RX medications. So we're like, oh, let's. So that was really the initial thing. We're like, oh, let's try to set up a system where we can provide at
Mhm.
least like the basics, the finasteride, the minoxidil. Oral minoxidil was starting to get finally more popular, and we were using it in the practice. But I'm like, can I make it available safely to people online, and just offer it at a cheaper price because it's a generic pill? So
Yeah.
like, what, I can still have a little margin, and like undercut the guys like Hims, or these other companies that are selling it at higher prices. So we set that up. It took some time. I mean, we had to come up with the questionnaire along with this other company of doctors that are the ones who actually prescribe this stuff. It wasn't coming to me. Like, if a patient came to me to my practice, that's a different story. But if they just
Right.
wanted to get it through the Feel Confident website, which was like Feel Confident 1.0, this was in April 2023 that we launched with this. But at least it was like an easy way for people in the States to get these medications. And, we had a good network of doctors that we kind of brokered with, and then a digital pharmacy out of Kentucky that helped us with actually shipping the medications and whatever. So that worked. And then we also started with the scar gel at that time.
Mhm.
That was our first cosmetic product. And the the genesis of that was basically, one of my nurses was like, "Oh, like, why do we keep, especially for the lip procedures?" And at that time, I was still doing some facelift work. And why are we giving like other scar gels? Why are we recommending all these other scar gels? Like, patients would put makeup on, and it was like that kind of glossy look or very
Mhm.
sticky. She's like, "Can we make our own?" So we were like, "Oh, like, let's try to make our own scar gel."
Yeah.
And it's like, how the hell do you do that? Like, we talked to all these labs, and they're like, "Ah, we don't really make scar gels." And we had this one lab make a scar gel, didn't really feel very nice. So then it turns out that my mother-in-law's first cousin is a beauty chemist with like 40 years under his belt. And I kind of knew of him, but like, we're not like that close. It's like family, but a little bit removed.
Yeah.
But he's worked for big, and continues to work for big companies. And we were like, "Oh, like, can he help us?" So we talked to him, and he's like, "Yeah, absolutely. I can for a PhD chemist
Yeah.
with all this beauty experience." So really having him as like a contact, and for him to freelance for us, that was really huge, and something that I think a lot of people don't realize. Like, for a lot of beauty brands, especially new brands, whether it's skincare, hair care, you just like go to a manufacturer, and they take something that's more or less like off the shelf, like ready, and they might put in like a compound for you. Like, you say you want avocado in your whatever moisturizer, like they'll put that into some, base moisturizer that they have literally available there, because it's not too much work for them. And then you, as a founder or as a company, you don't actually own,
You
the
don't own the
formulation.
formula. Yeah.
You don't own it. And then if you try to like take it out from that lab, which they don't want you to do, because it's, let's say you get fed up with them, or you're looking to expand, and then they go charge you 25,000 per formula. So then you're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, okay, I guess I'm stuck here." So anyway, so we did it differently. We had this chemist. We own all of our formulas. They're all made from scratch. They have actives that the chemist would recommend, that I would recommend. Like, we just kind of tried to make it work. Where I never looked at the cost of like the base ingredients. I didn't care. Like, I was just like,
Yeah.
let's just like put some good actives in there. Let's, our team here is very skeptical and very detail oriented, like my clinical staff. So everyone would try it and test it, and, oh, change this. Like, we had full control over the qualities of each of these products. And then, to the scar gel we put out there, and then in April of 2024 we launched with these 6 new cosmetic products. And it was 3 for hair, 3 for skin. And part of it was talking to the chemist about like what would be a nice initial kind of offering of products in
Mhm.
these. different areas. So we did like a thickening shampoo, conditioner, and a foam on the hair side, and then on the skin side, we had a moisturizer, a cleanser, and an HA serum. But again, it's like very high quality ingredients and formulations, but like we tried to keep it fairly affordable,
Mhm.
so people aren't paying, like insane amounts for these products. And that was really like the impetus for all this stuff. And now we have these products, and now this is a little bit of what the future holds, I think, for Feel Confident, but we're probably going to go a little bit more into the hair care like space, um, full full force,
Mhm.
because on the marketing front, it's difficult to push. Like, we have great products, and we've even done clinicals now for our moisturizer and the serum, and results were great. We sent it out to Italy to like a clinical testing facility, paid a lot of money for that, but it's like it's very hard to push on all of these products, and you need like massive budgets.
Mhm.
And then there's something to be said for just kind of focusing on a niche and being kind of known for that niche. So we'll probably gradually fade out the skincare, and I hope one day actually bring it back. But we have a new scalp serum that will hopefully drop at the end of the year. But again, they're just like really high quality products that are not meant to replace like RX medications. They're just meant to support the hair, and as much as a cosmetic product can. We cannot even make claims like it helps grow hair,
Mhm.
even if it did, because that would be against like, the regulations. So
Yeah,
there's all
it is
these
very tight with the
regulatory,
FDA and the FTC and
all that stuff. So it's you gotta be very careful about language. There's a lot we've learned along the way. We have a rebranding that we went through. The new kind of bottles and the packaging will drop hopefully by the end of the year, and it will be a little bit more hair focused. But we are learning. We are learning. We don't pretend to know everything, but all I know is that I we don't skimp on the design of the actual products and what goes
Mhm.
into them. And I hope that the new packaging delivers an even better experience for people. But yeah, it's been interesting. It's a CPG stuff, very different from marketing the practice or running the practice. So
Mhm.
a lot we've learned, a lot we still need to learn, but it's been really fun, and overall feedback from our customers on the product side has been really, really positive. So, and our patients are using it, and other people online find us. So it's been cool.
That's great, and we'll certainly include a link to your Feel Confident brand in the podcast show notes and on the YouTube video description. And, we talked before the podcast about offering a discount. Depending on when you're listening to this, the discount may or may not be available, 'cause, I don't expect it to be in perpetuity, but you can use the code Skinfluence for a discount on the Feel Confident website, and we appreciate you guys making that available to the listeners of the podcast.
Absolutely. We'll keep it active. So like it's gonna probably be like a one-time sort of discount.
Yeah.
The best is like if you go to feelcomp.com, there's a newsletter thing. So you just like, put your email in there, and then people can just like know when the latest things are dropping. We also have like a blog type thing. That we have a writer who summarized a lot of things from our videos, and just other things happening in the space, and puts it into like a really nice sort of newsletter every week or so. So they can get that. And then like, we're always announcing different discounts for whatever, like holidays and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So there's always some sort of discount running. People love that. But yeah, for sure for the listeners, they'll be able to go and get like their 20% off and just try this stuff out. I mean, it just feels very different from a lot of things on the market, including some of the really expensive brands. We
Mhm.
tried them, and we felt like sometimes either the smell was overpowering, or it just didn't feel great on the skin or on the scalp, and it was
Sure.
like no reason for it to be. Yeah, the other big truth that I'm just gonna say it is like it doesn't, no matter how fancy you get with the ingredients, the core like amount that it costs to fill a bottle is, it's not like it's either $2 or $50. It's
Mhm.
like on the order of dollars. It's maybe, let's just say, under $10. So for companies to be charging, $100 for a serum, 150, 200 and up, it's just kind of absurd, and it's more of
Yeah.
just like, kind of a high-end marketing play.
Mhm.
But, there's you can put good products in and keep the costs, I think, reasonable, and still have a margin there for the company.
Yeah, totally agree, and I'm excited to hear feedback from the listeners on the products. And with your education, your mission, the way you like to teach and educate patients, and your desire to create efficacious products, I think it'd be worthwhile for anybody to give them a try. And just two other quick things before we close out. First is, what are you most excited about in the hair restoration space that's coming from some of the research that's being done, new molecules being developed? Is there anything you're really excited about that we might see on the market in the next 5 to 10 years?
I just put out a video on PP405. It's a new one out of UCLA, a new topical compound. Uh, Again, I just have to drop some truth on this, and I tried to be optimistic in my video. Look, I think it'll probably be better than topical minoxidil because topical minoxidil doesn't do a whole lot.
Uh-huh.
Will it be the best stimulating sort of factor that we have compared to everything else like oral minoxidil and PRP? I don't think so. I think
Mhm.
it'll probably pale to even oral minoxidil, but we'll see. And then I don't think it's gonna do anything on the prevention side. Its mechanism isn't one to do anything on the prevention side. It's more about stimulating some stem cells. Problem is, once you kind of burn through, it's like a factory and the factory
Yeah.
dies, it's very difficult to stimulate it. And so, I think oral minoxidil already gets people pretty
Mhm.
far as like what is possible. And it's been I think the most efficacious that I've seen, at least in my practice, compared to like, and we were doing PRP with exosomes and high level exosome, like all the stuff, but I still think oral minoxidil sort of wins out. And
Yeah.
then you'll still need something on the preventative side, unless there's nothing really further to prevent the loss of.
Right.
So I'm a little bit, to be honest, Dustin, a little skeptical on a lot of these new compounds. Will we have better, um, like DHT fighting agents that are safer? Maybe like the androgen receptor blockers that are being tested. Maybe, maybe,
Mhm.
maybe. If anything, I'm more excited for that because of the, side effects people are afraid of. Um,
Right.
it's just that we have something that truly works now that for men with AGA, the finasteride and minoxidil.
Mhm.
And I know everyone's hopeful that there's going to be this new stuff and it's going to be great. And I hope that's the case, but part of me is very skeptical that there's gonna be things that are gonna truly trump what we have decades of data on, and when you read the comments on the PP405 video, so many people are "Sign me up, put
Yeah.
it I'm gonna buy it right now." It's like they don't even care to see, like, what's the long-term
What's
effects
the
of
long
it, like,
term? Yeah.
what's long
Are
term?
yeah. Are you familiar
I
with
don't know.
Scoob 3? Some of the molecule or the
Mhm.
research coming out about Scoob 3? Do you think that that looks
Yeah.
promising?
Yeah, out of UC Irvine. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think maybe, but again, I did a podcast with Bill Rossman, who's part of that company that is gonna commercialize it. It's the same general concept that
Mhm.
it's more on the stimulation side as opposed to prevention, and you kinda have to have something to stimulate, you know? So, will we have topical agents better than topical minoxidil in the near future, the next few years? 100%. I have
Yeah.
0 doubts that they will be safe, they will be more effective, but compared to some of the oral agents that are, like, tried and true for decades, I'm still skeptical
Still
about that.
skeptical. Yeah.
Um, on the surgical front, I have some ideas to improve things, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money to create a new device,
Mhm.
and the robotic systems that we have now are not better for patients than some of the handheld machines that we have. So the high-end clinics like ours internationally, no one's using. I'm not gonna say the name of the robot so they don't come after me, but
Yeah.
no one's using it. 0%. Uh, it's just that's just what it is. And the reason is from a patient's perspective, like patient-focused perspective, which is really how I see all this stuff is like, is this the right thing for my patients? That's why I'm not the first to jump on the latest tech or the latest drug. Um, people who are, I think, are just mainly in it for the marketing side of it, but I want it to actually work and I want it to be safe for patients. But the outer diameter of the punch on the current robot is much too big. It's about
Yeah.
30% bigger than what we're using in most clinics to deliver excellent outcomes, and we can kind of go in a much more customized way around the donor area than the current robotic system. I do hope one day that robotics plays a role in just like speeding up the surgery, making it more efficient, reducing sort of the labor intensive elements of it. But I think we need better like microscopic actual like tools and elements that then can get like put into a machine. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That then automates it. But those little specific tools of how we extract and how we implant are there's room for improvement, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I hope to be part of that improvement, and I have ideas, but it's expensive to get those ideas and like actually make the thing. So I'm inching in that direction, but it's a lot to invest in, and I kind of have my hands in different things with the products
Yeah.
now and stuff. So we'll see.
Well, I think you're doing great things. For anybody that wants to find you online or even to consult with you in your practice for hair or lip treatment, where's the best place for consumers and patients to find you?
Well, we have two clinical websites, cityfacialplastics.com, that has some of the hair work, but also a lot of the lip work. Linkovhair.com for all of our hair activity. And then YouTube for most of the content that we put out. We, of course, have Instagram and TikTok, but YouTube is kind of our workhorse, and that is just my name. Just search my name, Gary Linkov. You'll find it all there. Yeah, but you can reach our clinic through one of those clinical websites pretty easily. And yeah, happy to talk about, again, customizing the care for the individual. And I say no a lot,
Yeah.
and I think that's important because there's a lot of people who are just say yes to any request, any surgery. But I think it's good for people to hear a no and sometimes the reasons why.
Right. Yeah. And I've talked about that. I think that's an important part of the training of any good surgeon is knowing when to say no. And so genuinely appreciate your time here on the podcast today. Again, you can go to feelconfident.com. There'll be a code Skinfluence if you want to get a discount on those products. And all the links to find Dr. Gary Linkov on social media and through his practice to learn more about the process of hair restoration treatment. Dr. Gary, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Dustin, thank you, and thanks for being a shoulder to lean on as well when it comes to all this social media stuff. I think people don't always realize that it can be lonely when you're making this type of content. So
Yeah.
having someone else that inspires you, like in my case with you, and seeing everything that you put out and all the wisdom you have around that, and what you do to educate the public, I think is awesome. And thank you for that, and that helps me then be able to create what I do.
Well, awesome. Thank you. That means a lot.